hope is a wonderful thing, because when you lose hope, you have nothing. When you have hope, you can create everything.
Welcome to episode 223 of the Pathways to Success, where we have conversations with inspiring leaders about their keys to business and personal success. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have an outstanding show in store for you today. It is my pleasure to welcome back Dallas fitness entrepreneur and operating partner at Satori Capital, Larry North. Larry, welcome back to the Pathways to Success.
Thank you. Great to be here.
How are you?
As you know, I enjoy this.
It's great to see you, man. And really, anytime that I have the chance to be with you, it's always awesome. So thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, today, Larry, I want to really unpack your journey to success and really go into the details of what were the specific things you did that allowed you to become successful, that we could learn from your own story and apply into our own lives. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So much of Larry's story is about the fitness journey, but today he's an operating partner at Satori Capital. So I first want to start there. So Larry, what is Satori Capital?
Well, Satori Capital is a private equity firm, which is really interesting because one of the co-founders, Randy Eisenman, he's 48-ish, and I met Randy when he was in his early 20s. In fact, Randy was a listener of my radio show as a teenager. And so we sort of had even though I was significantly older than him at the time, we had sort of a bit of a bond. And he brought me into his company probably 6-7 years ago just to really kick off their Optimal Living program. And in fact, my wife, Brenda, joined me, and it was a full day. I mean, literally, I had so much material that I needed the entire day, but in between each segment, Brenda would do a guided meditation to have you sort of have that message really set in. Well, the next thing, Randy said, listen, would you and Brenda mind coming to each office once a month and doing consultations? And they built a meditation room for Brenda. And I just started listening and making some introductions because I love their platform is really based on conscious capitalism, which that really resonated with me. In fact, the Stegan Institute, which is a leadership program for leaders to understand conscious capitalism, I knew the founder of that, and then Satori happened to be the seed money to help it grow. And so one thing just sort of led to another as I learned the private equity side where, private equity, they buy companies, basically. And then there's the wealth management platform. And through those introductions over time, Randy came up to me and said, Larry, we've got some good news. Through those introductions, we've raised a significant amount of capital. You've never asked. We should tell you, but we can't pay you based on the raise. Well, I'm like, why not? He goes, because you're not licensed. So I spent a whole year figuring out how to get paid without having to get licensed, because you have to take these FINRA exams. I'm like, at my age, studying for FINRA exams, I didn't like any exam in my whole life. And these are designed for you to fail. And I had to take 3 of them. So finally, I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna study for these. And I'm not kidding. So you go into the testing center, you take the test, and then I would shut my eyes. I passed, I couldn't believe it. So I passed consecutively, I get funded, and then at the same week that I passed those exams, my first private equity deal came through the door. And that's not an easy task because there are so many steps to getting a private equity deal completed. So that was sort of the beginning. And it's not stopped since, and I love every minute of it. It's just, it's all about relationships. So that was, my relationship portfolio has always meant much more to me than any other portfolio, including financial. So I felt like I had such a robust group and network that it's just really been nice. I enjoy every minute of it.
So Larry, I know in this season of your career, you do not have to work. You can choose from choices. So what is different about Satori Capital in the way they do business versus other private equity firms?
Well, here's one thing. So in private equity, it's, the truth is, I think I've never really cared for people in private equity. I think they're sort of greedy for the most part, not all, but many, especially the bigger the firm. And with Satori, it's not about that. It's really about finding good leaders and finding good companies that they feel that they can help grow to the next level. What's also unique about Satori is every single partner has owned at least one business and sold it. They're operators. Yes, they're educated, they're smart. Sonny Vanderbeck, one of the co-founders, was an Army Ranger who was one of the youngest general managers at Microsoft at the time when he was in his 20s, and became one of the youngest entrepreneurs that took a company public that had a $3 billion market cap, still in his late 20s. Very, very smart. And then of course Randy, who just entrepreneurial, brilliant, and so these meeting of the minds got together and say, how can we start a firm that's unique and different? They've been successful at doing that, so it's a perfect fit for me.
And I know you mentioned one of the things that are different, they don't just strictly invest and then flip. It's like more of a long-term play.
Well, so almost every private equity firm has a fund. So let's say the fund could be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, typically 7 to 10 years, which means that they have to flip that company. You know, the people invest in the fund, people want to get a return on their investment. Well, with Satori, they have a buy to build versus buy to flip. So their fund is what's called evergreen. So it's 99 years, which is also very appealing to me because their whole concept is how can we take your company and go to the next level? So if you're a founder and you care about your culture and you care about your community and you care about the people that really got the company to be where it's at, like right here, everyone's a part of building this process. And if that leader and those partners really care about the people that brought them there, they would like a group like Satori, because we want to keep that culture going. We want to take everything that you've done that's successful and just maybe help you get to that next level.
So what are the kinds of businesses, companies that you're looking to connect with?
You know, it's interesting. It's less about the category and more about the people. And this group does not look for fire sales. They don't look for turnarounds. They like companies that are sort of accelerating. If you had to use numbers, you know, more the 5 million to 30 million in EBITDA. And, you know, really the category, it doesn't matter. I mean, I take that back. They don't look for professional services. You know, they're not doing real estate. They have another platform for those type of investments, of alternative investments, which I love that platform too. So yeah, I mean, it just really depends. So it's fun. So I could talk to anybody about any company really. And by the way, you know, I spent my whole life in a helping profession, primarily helping people to lose weight and keep it off. I was, I believe, pretty successful at that. This is helping people in a different way. And can I give you a perfect example? One of the companies, it's called Formulife. It's a supplement company that I was able to have. Satori they acquired the company, and the owners stayed on with they kept some of their stock going forward. And I knew that they were right for Satori, but let me tell you how I know I was right. The owner, the founder, Brandon, the first thing he did when the company sold is he paid the mortgages off of the 3 key people that helped him get there. Wow. Then he went ahead and paid the mortgages off of the family people that gave him support. Like, that to me is conscious capitalism. You're giving back. The first thing, he's not thinking about buying a car or buying a new house for himself. He's paying off their mortgages. And when I found out he did that, which was the next day he was funded, I knew that that was the right decision for Satori, because that's the kind of leader that we would want to be involved in.
I love that. So much emphasis on the character of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So Larry, I know you are a mission-driven individual, and you will never do anything if there wasn't a sense of purpose behind it. So what is your mission? What's your purpose now behind the work that you do at Satori?
You know, it's interesting. You know, what I did when I was younger to be successful is I don't need that particular playbook. And what I mean by that is being in the gym at 4:30, working out, coming home, you know, 10, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, which, by the way, I loved every minute of it. It was not work for me because I chose things to do that were really easy for me, at least I thought they were. And now that's not necessary. I don't need to put in those same hours to get the same goals accomplished. So for me, it's more about doing a show like this, or a friend calling me saying, hey, my son's thinking about opening up a gym, would you at least talk to him? Or it could be anybody. So it's more about almost like a give back, but at my own pace and based on who is in my network that reaches out to me. That's sort of just all I do, really. I just like to be able to have an opportunity to share some wisdom. Certainly there's lots of places people can go, and I hope that I could maybe just one little bit of advice could be the difference in somebody, you know, either career or entrepreneurship, or just maybe just understanding how to communicate a little more skillfully.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're going to have a lot of opportunity to give back, because here at Headstorm, we have a learning and development culture. There's a reason why we're doing this, because we want to learn from great leaders like yourself, and everyone's really into personal professional development and adopting a growth mindset. So I think right now, based on what you said, this is a kind of fulfillment of your mission and purpose. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So before we move on, anything else that you want to mention about Satori?
Yeah, really, I think we covered most of it. I will say this. Most of the people that I communicate, either through Slack, text, email, it's rare that it doesn't end with a love and appreciate you. That's my signature. I love and appreciate you, and it comes from my heart. And to be able to be in an environment where almost every single person I say that to, and I get it back too. So that sort of says it all. I mean, if you could be in an environment where you just love and appreciate the people you're with, I mean, you can't really ask for much more, and get paid on top of it.
Well, that's really awesome, and I think it's just awesome that you're here and sharing your energy and all these ideas right now. So I want to jump in now into your story of success. So just by a show of hands, who here has heard of Larry North? Raise your hand. All right, a lot of folks.
Like I said earlier, for you young ones, your parents have. They know me, I promise. Text them, they'll say, oh, I know that guy.
Who here is from the Dallas-Fort Worth area? Okay, cool, awesome. So I want to read a few fast facts about Larry, okay? Because the reason why I started the show is because when you meet someone who has produced a result, what their journey represents is truth, a method to achieve that result. So here are the results that Larry has achieved in his life. So Larry started his first business in 1983 at age 22. He was Murphy North Personalized Fitness. He opened the first Larry North branded gym in the prestigious Highland Park area in 1988? 89. And he grew that business and eventually opened up locations in Fort Worth, Rockwall, South Lake, Houston, South Beach, Uptown, and Dallas. He was in business for 34 years until he chose to retire. He had a very successful radio show from 1986 through 2019. He has authored 3 best-selling books, Get Fit, Living Lean, and Slim Down for Life. And he also created a mega international weight loss infomercial called the North American Slimdown.
Great North American Slimdown.
The Great North American Slimdown, and it generated $150 million in revenue. And Larry has delivered hundreds of TV and presentation appearances all worldwide. So this is what Larry has done, and this is who we have here today. So the stuff he's doing at Satori is just a sliver of what he's experienced in his career. Is that cool? All right. So Larry, let's do some detective work now, okay?
Got it.
So knowing all of this, if your life was a documentary film, what is the opening scene?
That's tough. It's interesting because it didn't start off. I can get emotional too. It's an interesting question. It didn't start off really good. Opening scene would have to be my upbringing. My dad was not the best character, and profiled twice, not once, on 60 Minutes as the country's most degenerate compulsive gambler. And with that came a lot of pain. So how we ended up here, actually, in Dallas in 1978, I don't talk about this that often, but we'd had enough. I was 15, my brothers were 5, they're twins, and my mom was at the edge of the cliff. So we headed out from New York. Anyone want to guess? Want to take a guess where we ended up? Las Vegas, Nevada. My dad was banned from Vegas in the 70s. So it was a safe place if we could get there. We get there, and my mom's like, there's no way I'm raising my kids in their father's temple. Where are we going to go? We've used all our resources just to get there. And it's summertime in a car that had roll-up windows. And so my mom says, we're going to go to Houston. I'm like, Houston, Mom, we're from New York. We don't know anybody in Houston. That's the point. We're going to start a fresh life in Houston. Well, that car didn't make it to Houston. It made it to Spring Valley and North Central Expressway in Richardson, Texas. It imploded. In fact, the Como Motel is on the other side. Thank God we weren't on the other side. But the Continental Inn, which is no longer there, was on the other on the side that we were. And that's where we made our first residency, in the Continental Inn. We were destitute, but we were free. We were happy. We knew that my father was not going to ever find us unless we allowed him to, because she had learned from her mistakes from the past. I was old enough to be able to contribute to the family. And then one day, my mom like within the second, third day, she's out finding resources. She goes to Jewish Family Services. She goes to Salvation Army. She goes anywhere that would lend a hand, because we needed a lending hand. In fact, we ate at Poncho's, which was $2.99 for adults and kids eat free. And then North Park Mall had just opened, and they had these 10-cent hot dog specials. So for like 50 cents, we could eat. So I wasn't supposed to let anyone know where we were, but I had to let our neighbor know that we were safe. So from a payphone, I called him. I said, Richie, I can only tell you we're in Texas. He goes, Texas? He goes, Joey Morrow from down the road moved to Texas. My friend, we're in the same grade, and we lived right down. I go, Joey moved to a very Italian family. I said, can you see if you could get their number? But it's Texas, a big state. So I call back later from the payphone, and he gives me the number. It's 214. I call. Joey answers the phone. He goes, who is this? I go, Joey, it's Larry. How'd you get this number? Like, oh, you just want to know how I got the number, because remember, this is dial phones or push button phones. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I said, Joey, are you in Dallas? He goes, no, we were supposed to move to Dallas. We're in some town called Richardson. Swear to God, swear to God. So his mother grabs the phone. Who is this? I said, Mrs. Morrow, this is Larry North. She goes, what? Like, she stopped putting it all together. I explained the situation. She goes, you're coming to our home tonight for a home-cooked Italian dinner. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. My mom comes back, and I said, Mom, don't be mad at me, please. I had to find out. I had to let the Wagners know that we're safe. And you're not going to believe this. The Morrow family lives here, and they've invited us over dinner. And she registered Joey. She didn't know the mom and dad very well. But she goes, Joey, they live here? I said, Mom, we're going to have dinner at their house. So we show up at the house, and this is what I would call, for me, a God moment. We walk in, and my mother turns white, like white, ghost white. I think she's going to pass out. Maybe she just had too rough of a day. She looks at the sofa. She goes, what are you doing here? The woman looks back at my mom, goes, what are you doing here? And this banter goes back and forth. It's the woman that was helping my mom all day at JCC. All day, she spent with that woman sitting on that sofa in the Morrow's house. And she goes, my brother is Joe Morrow's partner in the swimming pool business. Joe was a construction guy out of East Coast. That's why he came to Dallas. The next day, I showed up at his house at 5 in the morning to start my job. It was the summer, by the way. What does a teenager ask? How much I got paid? He goes, minimum wage. If I could pay you less, I would, but I can't. He says, then he says, we take off when it rains, son, and I don't want you to ever be late, and I don't want you to ever be sick. If you're late and you're sick, just stay home. I need healthy young men that are going to be on time and responsible to work for me. And so, okay. It didn't rain for 100 straight days. 100 straight days. It's a historic summer. 90 of those days was over 100 degrees. And we're outside in a pool, but guess what? $4.25 an hour, 40 hours, 30 hours of time and a half. Do the math. That's $500 to $600 of 80s dollars, 70s dollars. That would be the equivalent to $2,000 today a week that I'm able to give my mom. And she got a part-time job, and that's how it all started, Julian. That's it. So that's the opening scene.
Dude, give it up for Larry. That's incredible.
And my emotion is of joy, not of sorrow, because it's so easy to reflect back and go, oh my God, that was pretty tough. But people do have it tougher. But the fact is, we had hope. And hope is a wonderful thing, because when you lose hope, you have nothing. When you have hope, you can create everything.
Wow, unbelievable. Larry, especially in those formative years, what did you discover were some of your gifts and talents that eventually translated into your career?
I just believed in myself. I had no doubt that my life was going to end up okay. My mom did not like me saying that when it wasn't okay. I used to say, Mom, everything's going to be okay. Stop saying that, it's not okay. But in my brain, I knew that it would be okay. So I just sort of knew. I just can't even explain it. I knew that people could outthink me, but I didn't think they could outwork me. I just felt like if I put in the work and was creative enough, I could pretty much do anything I wanted. And so just that belief system in myself was probably really important. And then along the way, you find people that also believe in you. Not everybody does, but there are a few that see something in you that maybe you didn't necessarily see in yourself that gives you the drive to be able to go to the next level.
I heard two things. You had a kind of innate sense of belief, and then also you intentionally surrounded others who believed in you as well to reinforce that.
I've been brilliant at that. I have just, Zig Ziglar called it the handing of the baton. So I had the baton. I was always, if I found sort of a mentor, leader, personality that I felt I needed to get some wisdom from, I'd give them the baton and often take it back and give it to somebody else, because sometimes that person gives you pretty much as you need from that person or you're going to get from that person. It's time to find another mentor or another leader that can inspire you.
I want to unpack that self-generating belief. Who here has ever felt like they were not good enough for something? Ever experienced a lack of belief? Everyone here, right? So what were the keys to generating that self-belief? Where did that come from? What is a practice that we could cultivate to increase our own belief in ourselves?
Well, for me, the bar was so low that I just had to sort of step over it. So in my family, because of my dad's background and the upbringing I had, and everyone sort of that knew him and knew that part of my life, thought I was going to end up like his father. Well, that wasn't true. I wasn't going to end up like my father. I just knew that the bar was low and that all I had to do were several things to have a good life. And that's really basically it. So I wasn't thinking of becoming a multi-millionaire. I wasn't thinking of building a big business. I was just thinking of having a good life. That's really all it was. I just wanted to have a good life. I just wanted to be a good human being, a good person, and know that good things would end up happening if I chose that path.
I love that. So what inspired you to pursue a career in fitness?
Actually, it was sort of an accident. I worked a lot of jobs, so I loved every job I ever had. Every job I ever had was the best job I ever had, because every job I ever had, I needed it. Mm-hmm. And so I worked as a bouncer in some pretty popular places and really loved that job, but you're working till 2, sometimes 3, even 4 in the morning. I sold ladies' shoes, which I also loved. I found I had an aptitude for selling because I was a stock boy while I was in high school. And then one day, this is the 70s, remember, a bunch of people just were too drunk, I guess, the night before and didn't show up to work. So they threw me on the sales, from stock boy to sales, because they needed help. I'm like, I'm wearing a t-shirt and jeans. They brought me across the mall, put a shirt and a tie on me, a clip-on tie, and I had a record Saturday sales day that they hadn't achieved in like 2 or 3 years. And so that became selling. And so really, basically, I'm in the morning, I'm in the gym, and one day I almost would fall asleep in the gym because it was so early, and I didn't want to miss workouts. I was a little obsessed at that time, and there was a guy. There's no one in the gym. It's dark outside, and there's a guy that's real heavy set that comes into the gym. He looks around. I'm looking at him. He walks out. Something made me chase him. I went after him. I scared him a little bit. I was a pretty big bodybuilder. And I said, no. What happened just then? Why did you leave? He goes, I can't do this. I'm hopeless. There's no way I'm going to lose weight. I said, do you realize showing up is half the battle? You showed up. My name's Larry North. And I said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I'll meet you here 3 times a week. I didn't charge him. I wasn't thinking. There was no personal training. I said, I'll tell you what. I'll meet you here 3 times a week. But I stop meeting you if you don't show up and you don't take the advice that I'm going to give you. Well, he agreed to do it. And I met him 3 times a week. This went on for several months. He happened to be a businessman. And he was sharing business wisdom with me throughout the workout as I'm sharing things about exercise and giving him a little. He ended up losing quite a bit of weight. And so I knew at that moment in time that I had something, there was something here, that this man came into my life out of just nowhere, where I'm just about sleeping in a gym, just getting ready for my next job and my own workout. That was the beginning. I knew that there was something there that if I could sort of do that for other people, there could be something big ahead of me.
At that time, was there any personal training?
No way, no how, no way. I got into like verbal debates with people in the gym saying, they're like, no one's gonna pay $40 for a personal training session. Because remember, this is a long time ago. Now they're paying 150, 200. But I'm like, they will pay it. I said, if you offer value and you get results, they will pay it. And even my partner at the time, who was my roommate and my bodybuilding partner, he was skeptical. He didn't think people did, but I knew that they would. And so that's sort of how that started.
Wow. A couple things. First off, you said you saw that you had a knack for sales. What was the moment that you saw that you had a knack for sales?
That day that I didn't tell you something. So in the stock room, the general manager of the whole store, it was Margot's La Mode. So anyone who knew the 70s, Margot's actually had the sexiest shoes in the city. So they were known for that. And they had clothing too. And the Glickmans owned it. So they were a very famous retail family. So anyone from retail from the 70s and 80s, well, the general manager didn't allow music in the stock room. He played Zig Ziglar tapes. Now I'm in the stock room and I'm listening to him over and over and over again. Money can buy you a house, but it won't buy you a home. Money can buy you a bed, but it doesn't buy you a good night's sleep. So I memorized all this stuff, and he had all the sell stuff, so it just stuck in my brain. So when I got out to sell the shoes, I knew where every single shoe was in that stock room. No one knew that stock room like I did. So it just sort of happened, and really, to me, sales is really a beautiful thing. It's sort of a dying art. It's sort of like salespeople today are like dinosaurs because everything's so automated and transactional and done off of the internet. My wife doesn't go to stores; she buys everything off the internet. And so, but it's a beautiful thing. And so, I loved it. I loved the art of selling. And then I immersed myself in every single sales book, from Brian Tracy to Tom Hopkins to all these 80s guru sales guys that, and I just studied it and learned it and just really embraced it.
What kind of advice would you have for us here in attendance to discover what our knack is? That natural inclination, a unique gift or talent, knowing what you know about how you discovered it on your own.
It's passion. Whatever really gets you excited. Everyone's there's something that everybody likes, whether it's collecting baseball cards or whether it's listening to music, or just find the passion, something that just gets you excited, something that gives you goosebumps, something that just makes you go, I love this. And that's where it starts, I believe. And it doesn't matter what it is, just have passion. People gravitate to people that are passionate. They just do. People like to be around other people that are passionate. And so find passion and be passionate.
So find passion, be passionate, find the thing that really lights you up, and that it sort of begins to unlock based on that passion.
I think so. I don't think there's any secret sauce. I really don't. I think that really everything's individual. Everyone's different. Everyone has to find their own path, what really wakes them up in the morning, what keeps them up at night. There's just, but just be true to yourself and just don't be automated. Don't do what other people tell you to do if that's not what you want to do. Do what you feel drawn and driven to do.
Gotcha. Coming back to the story that you mentioned about how you felt there was something here, training this individual without the term personal training. How did you begin to build Larry North?
So I'm going to tell you, this is sort of an interesting story. So back in the late 70s, early 80s, at a bodybuilding gym, there was one thing that they didn't have. There was no piece of cardio ever in those gyms. Maybe like an old stationary bike that no one used. Very rarely were there women in the gym. But there were two women in this gym, Jan Miller and Dee Dupree. Jan Miller was known to have known Arnold Schwarzenegger, but no one would talk to her. They were young, attractive women, and finally one day, if she knows Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm gonna go introduce myself. So I went right up to Jan, I said, hi, I'm Larry North, I'm a personal trainer. She says, great, I'm gonna get your first 20 clients and you're gonna train me for free. I'm like, oh, wait, yeah. So she was a marketing woman. She did marketing for Adidas at that time, and Arnold was one of their clients. So she really did know Arnold Schwarzenegger. She goes, not only are you not gonna pay me, you're gonna come work for me for free too. You're gonna come into my office once a week, and I'm gonna teach you marketing and PR. And lo and behold, she got me my first 20 clients. She was really, in fact, today Jan's pretty famous. She's the most successful literary agent in the country outside of New York that does an office in New York. But at that time, that's what she did. So listen, I'm in her office and I'm just listening to her talk to all these media folks. So I started my own PR firm. My own PR, I was my only client. I'm serious. And Michael Money was my name. Hi, I'm Michael Money, and I would call I had all the names of people in the Dallas Morning News, D Magazine, every radio station. So I started calling them. I said, Julian, I'm Michael Money. I represent Larry North. This kid is dynamic. He's one of the first personal trainers in all of Dallas history. You gotta see him and meet him in person because I can't even describe how amazing this guy is. I'm getting D Magazine. Remember, you still have to step up. You can get that opportunity, but like, you know what it's like in front of a camera. Either, I think you can develop it, but I sort of had it. I wanted it. And so I got so much media that she goes, stop, you're blowing all my leads for my other stories. She goes, enough, you're like getting overexposed. And that's how it is. I got so much exposure, and then one book changed my life that a friend of mine gave me that owned an ad agency called Guerrilla Marketing, and I took that true to heart. And basically the premise of the book, how can you market yourself, you're a marketing person, how can you market yourself without spending a dime? So I came up with some good ideas. One was the Larry North plate. What is that? Well, back then, that movie Harry Met Sally was very famous. There's a famous scene in there where she's special ordering. Well, people didn't like when people special ordered. Not the restaurant, not the chef, not the waiter. It was a pain in the butt. So I created the Larry North plate that was already done. Pre-ordered, pre-made. Chicken, rice, vegetables on your menu. And let me tell you, that became a very big staple in here throughout the 80s and 90s. One time, 70 restaurants had the Larry North plate. I went into a Thai restaurant one time. It had a Larry North plate, and I'd never been in there. And I said, well, can I ask you a question? Does Larry like this plate? They go, oh, Larry loved this plate, man. Yeah, the favorite plate. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to take it off the menu. It was so good. It was brown rice, broccoli, and chicken with a nice little sauce on the side. So those are the kind of things that I did, just my own sort of one-man band. And it just grew.
So let's go over that. You made a post a couple weeks ago that I think I want to use as the framework of the rest of our conversation here. Okay. Because based on that, how you learn to market yourself, you have these rules. This is hyper relevant for folks here at Headstorm because we have partners, we have directors, folks who are client facing. And whether you're an engineer or designer, we're always looking to build a brand to evangelize ourselves on behalf of Headstorm. This dude is a branding genius, okay? So first, your rule number one is if you cannot muster overwhelming, contagious enthusiasm, you're swimming upstream. What does that mean?
Well, you better be able to flip the switch. So most people, like I hired a lot of people. So I would always interview almost everybody, I don't care what the position is. Well, I'm gonna assume that they're gonna be their best the day I meet them. At least they better be. I'm probably not gonna hire them. So let me give you an example of flip the switch. You could have, listen, we all have personal problems. We all have relationship issues. We all have sometimes financial strain and things in our head. But, hey everyone, this is Larry North. Give me a call, 214-787-1570. We're gonna have an amazing show today. Give me a call. I'm gonna teach you how to lose a pant or a whole dress size in 1 week. How does that sound to you? Let's light up these phone lines. You gotta be able to do that. You gotta be able to flip that switch. No matter what's going on in your life, you have to still be able to perform. And so I knew that, but it applies to everybody. Because what you do in your personal life and what happens in your personal life, just assume that there's gonna be stuff that happens that isn't always pleasurable, but you gotta still show up to work and you still gotta perform at a high level. And if you wanna achieve things at a high level, that's what I mean. So if you don't have to be a cheerleader. A lot of times people, I'm not a cheerleader. Well, you don't have to be a cheerleader. Just be you, but be you at a high level. And so whenever it's required. And that's what I mean, because if you can't muster up enough enthusiasm to make me smile, to make me feel like you've got something special, then you know what? Maybe you don't deserve to go to the next level.
Give us one technique when we're not feeling enthusiastic, but the moment calls for it. What's one thing we can do in the moment to generate that enthusiasm?
Gosh, I don't know if there's any one particular thing. I think that basically you just have to understand how it works. This is how it works. This is life. This is what goes on. And if you bring your just heavy emotional stuff into an environment that it doesn't belong, then there's not going to be good things that'll happen. They just won't. You just can't do that, or at least you shouldn't do that. So you just have to be able to separate the two. And you can practice too, though, by the way. You can practice. You can just practice. Just practice being upbeat. Practice being inspirational. Practice being inspired. Just, maybe it doesn't come to everybody naturally. It doesn't. It doesn't come to everyone naturally. Not everyone can do a podcast. Not everyone can do a radio show. Not everyone has to do that. But at least be the best version of yourself. And that takes work. It takes a lifetime of work. It doesn't just happen overnight. And it's like any skill set. You just want to keep getting better. You'll never be at the end because you can still improve. One of the awards that I'm proud of, and I'm not an award guy, but at Satori, every year I get the continues to learn, continues to have the desire to learn. So even at 62, I still know that there's a lot of things that I still need to do or that I could still do better.
I love that. Can y'all feel the enthusiasm? Can you see why this is not just a platitude? It is something that he exudes that makes him an attractive character, right?
Thank you.
So the second one is be extremely persistent. This can easily be dismissed as a platitude. Tell us why it is not.
3 Ps. One, I said passion, persistence, and perseverance. You got to have that drive. You just can't. There's going to be things that'll always be roadblocks. There's going to be flat tires. There's going to be, I'll give you a perfect example. My journey from New York to Las Vegas. The car broke down when we got outside of New Jersey. There were road detours. There's credit cards. Why isn't this working? Or you go to get gas. You're like, God, I hope that credit card will let me get enough gas to fill up my tank. There's going to be things that happen. They just do. I mean, it's just going to happen. You can't let that detour you. And it goes into one thing that isn't in that article is lack. You can't allow lack of anything to stop you from achieving everything. What I mean by that, lack of money, lack of friends, lack of people that believe in you, lack of education. You just got to go. You just got to keep going, keep pushing, keep driving forward. And so that can be taught, but mostly I believe you just have to want it so badly. And that was sort of me. I just had so much resiliency. And I guess that's a good word to use for people that want to go to the next level in their life is be resilient, be flexible, just don't let things get in your way. Don't get down, don't get depressed. Just keep, you might go lateral, you might go 2 steps back, but keep going forward.
So to be persistent, you must be able to deal with fear and rejection. Give us your best stuff on dealing with fear and rejection.
Well, remember, there's a difference between fear and being scared, okay? I always got, for years, doing my show, I would get these heebie-jeebies, like, oh God, it's like the first time. Or I'd go to do a presentation, I'd forget everything I was going to say and everything I studied for, like 2 minutes before they announced my name. Like, how did it just go to a blank slate? So you just, it's about being prepared, and fear is a natural emotion. I think you'd be maybe what's the word? Not a psychopath, but a sociopath. I think if you didn't have some sort of fear, you'd be a bit of a sociopath. Fear is a natural emotion. It's okay to be fierce. Sort of let the fear drive you. Use that fear to be able to know that that's okay. Everyone experiences that. I was in the karate, martial arts, bouncer world. Well, everyone's fearful of things. I didn't like competing in tournaments. I think maybe one reason I was as good as I was is because I was fearful of getting hit in the face, And so just sometimes you could use that fear to help you go to other levels as well, too.
So using it as a motivator.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
It's natural. Who doesn't have some sort of fear?
So the fourth rule you have is get creative. What do you mean by that? And how can we get creative when it comes to marketing ourselves and building our own brand?
Well, I use an example of the creativity with the Larry North plate. Was an example of being creative. Mm-hmm. Being Michael Money was an example of being creative, just taking on that persona of somebody different. Even now, I think in private equity, it's just being creative and being able to create relationships that instead of me chasing private equity opportunities, I've gotten creative where people come to me with those opportunities. And so you just sort of have to have a little bit of a plan, a little bit of chutzpah, a little bit of and think about a company like this. It's all creativity. I mean, there's so many creative minds in this group. I could feel their creativity. I know that they're creative. And so sometimes it's sort of thinking out of the box a little bit. Don't just sort of, just don't have to go with what is the norm. Sometimes you sort of come outside the norm and outside of your comfort zone and just come up with ideas. And sometimes the ideas, I've come up with some really bad ideas, by the way, and they don't work. I just toss them aside and then I'll go to another idea that might work.
Have you done anything that inspires creativity? Any consistencies, commonalities, or something you can do to induce creativeness?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I will say this. Some of my darkest moments have created some creativity. And I'll give you an example. I've called it the white ceiling moment. So when I ended up signing a lease in the Highland Park Village and I had literally no money in my bank account, I swear to God, I didn't have a dime. I signed a lease to do a gym, I didn't have a dime. I didn't have money, I didn't even know anyone with money. And so I remember signing everything and getting my brother sort of prepped to be my first employee, and I'm laying in my bed and I'm looking up at a white ceiling. And I'm asking myself, what the heck have I just done? And how am I gonna figure this out? Like, that's a white ceiling moment. Like, you're really talking to yourself, like, what have I done and what situation have I put myself in? But we all have those every entrepreneur's had a white ceiling moment. How am I gonna make payroll? How am I gonna pay the rent? How am I gonna deal with this? Oh my God, just got hit with a tax bill that I didn't expect. Like, there's so many unexpected things that are gonna come your way that you just sort of have to be prepared for the unexpected, and things are going to happen, and you'll have that white ceiling moment, but you'll get through it. If you just have no choice. You either get through it or you don't.
I definitely had my own. You told me about that before COVID, and that creates an emotional response for me, because that was my white ceiling moment, right? Because I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, and then like within 48 hours, I lost all of my engagements, my 75% of my revenue, right? But I think if there was one thing that I can draw as a commonality, is that I wanted it so bad. I didn't care what was happening, and I kept going, and I booked a virtual gig after virtual gig after virtual gig, and then eventually things began to come out. That is consistency. The reason why I'm bringing that up, because now it comes into the realm of universality. It is not just something he's saying, it's something I'm saying that's the truth, and something you can have as well. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. So know what you want. The passion can really unlock things inside of you, and you can go after that. The last rule is be anywhere and everywhere. What does that mean? How can you do that being one person?
Well, you know, in a sense, I think you know the answer to that, because you sort of have to be all over the place. And I chose a profession that really needed exposure. I mean, you're going to be in fitness. Remember, there was no Google, there was no YouTube, there was no social media. That really, there was just several forms of media: print, radio, and TV. And so I knew that I needed to be all over the place. I needed to be in that restaurant on that menu. I needed to be at that chamber meeting. I needed to be at every single charity event. I never had, in the early days, I knew of the charities because my gym was in the Highland Park Village, and all these people talk about the Crystal Charity Ball and the Cattle Baron Ball. And I show up, I always knew to have a $100 bill, because that was going to the valet guy to let me in. And I got into all those places because I was everywhere and anywhere. I just had to show up. I just was there. You couldn't turn around without me being somewhere. I was going to show up. You're going to see this face and this smile. You know, I was all over the place. And now I don't have to be all over the place. But then I just was there. I just made it happen. There was no engagement. If you had one working ear, or if I could try to ad-lib sign language, I'd talk to you. I didn't need an audience. I just needed an audience of one. I preferred an audience of 3,000, but if I had an audience, I'm showing up and I'm doing my presentation.
I think that's where a big lesson I think I just learned. You said that you did it a bunch in the front end, but then you didn't have to do it as much later because you had built a brand, you had a reputation.
Right.
And something I always call it is a brand is reputation, passive income. You built that critical mass, and then people came to know you by your reputation.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
And you know what we're learning today, boy, my gosh, They always say it takes 20 years to become an overnight success, and it takes years, sometimes decades, to build a business. It takes 20 minutes to tear it down. Do something stupid, do something bad, especially in today's world. If you're a crook or you're just not an ethical business person, I think you're done in today's society, because you can't hide that. Back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, you could sort of hide it. You could be a con artist and you get away with that. So you really have very little margin of error at this stage of your life to do anything that is not above board, because we're so exposed in today's world, which is good, in my opinion, because it sort of keeps people on the straight and narrow, and it should.
Yeah. So Larry, before we close and go into Q&A, there's so many things here that we discussed and so many useful, valuable nuggets that we can apply. But give us all here your absolute best career advice. If you do this, you will be successful.
Gosh, that's a lot to unpack. I just believe, in terms of career advice, I mean, just one, believe in yourself, obviously, stay true to yourself, and just, again, like we've sort of talked about, just don't let anything get in the way of you being able to pursue and achieve your goals. There's so many things that can get in the way. You just have to sort of deaf ear it. Just deaf ear the negativity. And just like even in sales, when if I'm trying to sell you a pair of shoes, if I'm trying to sell you a pair of shoes, because I sold women's shoes, and I couldn't hear no. I just didn't hear that. And I think you take the same thing in your career. Just you're going to get pushback, you're going to get rejection, you're going to get all the things that come with trying to be successful. Just deaf ear it and just keep moving forward.
Just deaf ear it and keep moving forward. Awesome. Larry, the show is called Pathways to Success. Close us out. What is your definition of success?
Well, so I've been very fortunate to run in some circles with some very affluent people. That's sort of a good thing too. I've been around a lot of successful people. I'm at times never the wealthiest in the room, which I could care less if I was, but I'm generally the happiest in the room. So to me, happiness is really what the ultimate goal is. And happiness has a different definition for everybody, but I can honestly say I'm pretty happy. I'm a pretty happy guy, and that's all I've ever wanted.
Success equals happiness. I love that. Larry North, everyone.
Very much.
Larry, if you would close us out, direct to this camera here. Tell our audience how to connect with you, learn more about you. Tell us all that.
Well, there's just, Larry at LarryNorth.com, I guess. Just email me, that's sort of it. Or just look me up. I generally, that's one thing. I open every piece of mail and I return every phone call and every bit of communication. Even if sometimes someone calls me, I really don't want to talk to them, I still take the call. So that's it. So I'm pretty easy to find. If you really want to get a hold of me, I think you can.
And we'll make sure to have that in the show notes as well. So Larry, this has been a true pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah. My pleasure. Thank you.
And everyone else, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.